Welcome to Culinary Mechanic. As I look around and I realize that all the forces in the world seem to be conspiring against those running restaurants, it seems like there's never been a better time to stop and just take a moment um, and really talk about the basics of running a restaurant. So today, we're going to cover some fundamentals. We're going to talk about costed schedules, costing your menu, real briefly, um, looking at order guides and PARs. We're going to talk about cross training and creating a culture of learning in your restaurant, especially in the kitchen. Talking about purchasing. Um, and I think if you've got those 5 things dialed in, it might even be 6 things. But if you've got those things dialed in, you're one step closer to running a tight restaurant. And so I think if I can provide a little bit of information on that today, it's a win. So here we go. You're listening to the Culinary Mechanic podcast. I'm your host, Simon Zatyrka, the founder of Culinary Mechanic, a restaurant advisory firm focused on making kitchens and restaurants run like well-oiled machines. This podcast, we aim to bring you insights, strategies, tools, and tactics, and sometimes just good old advice and stories that are going to help you run your restaurant better. I hope you dig it because honestly, it's a real labor of love. One thing you could do that would help me a whole lot is to go anywhere that you listen to podcasts and leave a 5-star review. That'll help get the word out so that more people will hear this podcast, and hopefully we can help more restaurants run just a little better. Now please, enjoy the show. I don't know about you, but I did not get into the restaurant business to spend all my time in a cramped little office. I love being in the kitchen, out on the floor. And if you're nodding your head right now, I want to introduce you to an amazing company called Starfish. Look, I've gotten to know their CEO, Jordan, recently, and what they're building really impresses me. They're using AI to read your P&L, and they're going to email you actionable insights every week so you can lower your costs and increase revenue. Best part is you don't have to spend time digging through your P&Ls, poring over reports in that cramped little office. Starfish is going to do that for you so you can get back to the part of the business that you love. And I think by that I mean, is your schedule costed? Is your menu costed? Do you know what your food cost should be? If you have a budget and your labor, if your labor is supposed to be 10%, are you hitting it? Because if you're not, then you're losing money from the bottom line. I think that when I think about running a good restaurant, it's the basics. It's buy the food at the right price. Make sure that you've received everything that you have paid for, and then prep it and sell it, and make sure that the product is as good as possible and consistent every time. And I think that another basic, I think about line checks. And for those of you that run small restaurants and you go, line checks, oh, that's a corporate thing. Well, maybe. And if corporate's a bad thing in your mind, I don't know what to tell you other than consistency, consistency, consistency. For me, a line check can be nothing more than taking out a bunch of spoons and walking down the line and tasting everything and making sure that the sauce, that beautiful sauce that you made yesterday, tastes the same. They didn't use it all. It got reduced. Then they reheated it, got a little more reduced. Nothing can be more valuable than understanding what's happening in your kitchen, on the line. And whether you're a kitchen manager, a sous chef, a chef, hell, maybe you're an owner, and you want to make sure that your product is consistent, taste it and taste everything. Go down and look and make sure that you have portioning devices where they're supposed to be, because if you're supposed to be serving 5 ounces of protein and nothing's portioned out and with any form of device or no portioning bags, and we're just free-handing it, then maybe you're giving 7 ounces every time, or maybe you're shorting the customer and they're only getting 3 or 4 ounces. So consistency. It comes from a line check. It comes from paying attention to the littlest details that have to happen the same every day. For me, that's the basics. You gotta hit those things. When it comes to execution of the plates, are you teaching a dish every day? You could taste one dish a day with your team made to spec. Now, whether that spec is a recipe or whether the chef makes it for everybody and you taste it and you look at it, and this can be involving the front of the house too. And you're looking at flavor, you're looking at appearance, you're looking at taste, texture. And obviously, if there is a recipe, did you adhere to the recipe? What does it look like when it's perfect? I think that there's nothing more valuable than giving the cooks and the servers and even the busboys and the food runners and the managers the opportunity to see what it looks like when it's correct. That's what I mean when I say basics. When I think about a schedule, we all know that minimum wage has never been higher, and it's creeping up, and it's challenging. It's challenging to make a buck in this industry. But if you look at your schedule and you go, okay, well, can we shave 10 minutes, 15 minutes off of every person? Are we getting off the clock the way we should be? Again, those are the basics. With regards to menu costing, what is your budget? And if you don't have a budget, where do you want food costs to be? You should be at the very, very least, you should be looking at what you're spending every week on food purchases and dividing that by your food sales. I think that you've got to figure out what works for you. And then once you understand what you're looking at, great. And when it comes to inventory, I think that having enough to work with, but not too much, is really the key. If you have too much on hand, you can create a culture of excess. Sometimes culture of excess means that it doesn't matter. There's more. But the reality is that's money. So you've got to keep it as tight as you can without causing people utter stress about, oh my God, we're running out. And it's definitely a delicate balance. I'm a huge fan of setting pars on my order guides. I think it makes a lot of sense to really understand what you truly need so that, and this comes down to systems, right? I think that if you understand what you truly need, you should be able to pass that order guide to somebody. Training and cross training. When I think about staffing correctly, I think about using the least number of people to efficiently get the job done. And I think the best way to do that is to make sure that as many of your staff as possible are trained in more than one spot. If you've got a dishwasher that has some downtime, they should be prepping or, I don't know, cleaning some onions, doing something to aid the rest of the team. If you've got a prep cook who finishes their list a little early, maybe it's time to get them out and teach them how to do a salad or two on the line, so that when big volume hits, you've got some help for that person trying to get salads out. If you've got pantry cooks who are looking to move up to the next level, they should be learning other parts of the line. If you've got an amazing saute cook and an amazing grill cook, but they only do one thing, when somebody gets sick, you're in for it. It's going to hurt. So cross-training, super important. I think that creating an atmosphere where training and teaching is like job number one is just so important to culture. In the end, it's going to help you save money, but that's not the issue. The issue is that somebody is able to go to work and feel safe and feel great about going to work, and not only are they making money, but they're learning something new to add to their skill set. And I think that is, you look around at the surveys that companies do, and they talk about engaged employees. It's because those engaged employees are getting the opportunity to learn and grow while they make their money. And I don't know. I just don't know if there's anything more important. I think that In this day and age, when holding on to people is more important than ever, and you hear the sirens blaring, oh, there's a labor shortage, there's a labor shortage. I don't think it's a labor shortage, honestly. I think there's plenty of people out there. I think that if you're experiencing a labor shortage, you probably have a retention problem. And the number one way that I've ever seen to retain people is to engage them and make them feel safe and help them understand that they have a great place to come to work and learn. I used to work with a guy, and he used to say the neatest thing to me. And he'd say, when I was younger, it was all about leaving your shit at the door, leaving your baggage at the door, and you got to come to work. He goes, but I think of it differently. I think when I get to work, I'm safe, and now I can just go cook and learn and do the things that I thoroughly enjoy. And that's pretty valuable. It's not the have to, it's the get to. And I think that instilling that piece of culture in your team comes from nurturing and engaging, and that is a non-toxic environment where people can learn and grow. Purchasing, not a sexy topic, but when was the last time you as an operator stopped and went through the pricing of every single ingredient? Maybe made a phone call to a vendor that sells you meat, and looked around for a better deal, and or looked at what you're selling a lot of, because at some point it's worth taking that to the vendor and making sure that you have the best possible pricing. And you'll get some vendors who will say, "Oh, you're buying a lot of this. Let's save you some money." And you'll get others who go, "You're buying a lot of this. Thanks for the money." And so I think remembering that, a vendor should be your partner. They should be working with you, not against you. It shouldn't just be a transaction. It should be something where if they truly mean to keep your business, they're going to help you find ways to save money. One little tip, though, I would say, if I'm talking about produce, and you really want to wring it tight and make sure that you're getting every penny out of it, put a scale by the back door, and when you receive produce, weigh those cases and make sure that the net weight of those cases is really down to what it should be. Is a 25-pound case of bell peppers 25 pounds? Because that happens, believe it or not. But really double checking invoices, and if you are not checking in invoices every single day, every single time, I promise you at some point you're losing. And I don't think it's necessarily malice. I don't think that vendors are out there trying to screw you over, but mistakes happen. And I think that if you're not careful and if you don't have a culture of double checking, you're losing money. And there's just no two ways about it. Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about today, talking about here right now, is how challenging it is to run a restaurant and how important it is to watch those pennies, because pennies add up. Checking invoices, occasionally spot checking the weight of the fish or the meat or the produce that's coming in, is going to save you pennies. Actually, it's going to save you dollars down the road if you're careful. Yeah, purchasing, super important. Again, not sexy, but super important. So there you have it. We covered some fundamentals. You've got to know your numbers top to bottom. So you got to understand where your schedule is. You got to understand where your food cost is. You got to make sure that everybody is as cross-trained as physically possible. And I think part of that is creating a culture of learning and teaching, and making sure that your people are excited about coming to work. Because I don't know if anybody really wants to admit it, but if everybody's excited about coming to work, they're going to work just a little bit more efficient, and they're likely to save you some money. And last but not least, definitely purchasing. If you are purchasing smart, you will save yourself some money. And if you're double checking those orders as they're coming in, I promise you, over time, you're going to catch a lot of little stuff. So if you've listened to this and you go, gosh, I really could use some help, go to the show notes, find my information, please reach out. It's pretty easy though. It's simon@culinarymechanic.com. Shoot me an email. Let's talk about it. I may be able to point you in the direction of some resources. Um, but also that's what I do. I can help you. So if that's a thing, let's check it out. So once again, thanks for coming to play in our sandbox. One of the things you could really do that help me out a lot would be to go and leave me a 5-star review. But also, follow this podcast and tell your friends about it. Because if you're in the restaurant industry and you're digging it, I think there will be others too. You can find it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, of course, wherever you get your podcasts, and also on YouTube. And we'd love to see you. So, until next time, thank you so much. Have a great one.